Hi, my name is Noel Gorelick. I'm an engineer at Google. I've been there about 16 years, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some projects that I've gotten to work on there. Before I went to Google, I used to send spacecraft to Mars, so I got to work on every American Mars mission after Pathfinder that didn't crash. So that was 5 Mars missions. It was very fun. But then Google asked me to come work with them, and that also looked quite fun. While I've been at Google, I was the co-founder of Google Earth Engine, which I'm going to talk a little bit about here, and then some projects that use it. And I was also one of the authors for Google Mars and Google Moon, which I'm sure all of you use every day in your normal course of activities. And because then I wasn't doing enough, I just finished my PhD at University of Zurich about 4 months ago. I got my piece of paper in the mail 2 weeks ago, so I'm a freshly minted PhD. The platform that we built is called Earth Engine. It's designed for novice users or scientists to be able to process very large amounts of satellite data. The way this worked out is that when you start at Google working as an engineer, you're useless for about 9 months because there's a huge amount of machinery that is all very custom and very hard to learn. So I went to college for 8 years to figure out how to work with that sort of stuff. And even then, it still takes me a while to come up to speed with all the hardware that Google's got. But our thought was that as scientists, you shouldn't be limited by needing to know all that computer science stuff before you get to work and use big parallel processing tools. So we built Earth Engine to sit between Google's very large infrastructure and the public as a way to input simple scientific questions and get results. Like I said, designed for software scientists, not software engineers. And our goals are to make it as easy as possible to do very large-scale processing on essentially satellite data, but any geospatial data. Very importantly, our goal is to enable non-traditional users. Not only do we want to enable scientists to be able to process lots of data, we want them to be able to enable many thousands of people beyond them. So if you happen to know how to do drought mapping, I want to enable that so that you can then give that product to thousands of people in the world that actually need it. On my team, there are 5 people that do what I do amongst a team of about 30, where what I get to do is I travel around the world, I look for interesting projects, and I try to make them successful, usually in the areas of large societal problems, things like drought, deforestation, disaster, and disease. I work primarily in deforestation, a little bit in disease, and a little bit in drought. What I'm going to talk about for the rest of this is projects that I got to work on, just a little bit. I'm sort of the enabler for many of these projects, but they're really cool societal benefit projects that seem to make sense here. One of the things that makes us very popular is that we have an 80 petabyte data catalog of more or less all the world's satellite information. That's kind of an exaggeration, but most of what you'd want is in there if it's public. All of Landsat, basically all of Sentinel now, MODIS, 17 other satellites, and then a huge catalog of additional data that you'd use in conjunction with that. When you have all that data together, you can do some pretty cool stuff like this. This is a paper I got to work on in 2016, which was mapping global surface water change. So we took the entire stack of Landsat data, we mapped every single image for water or no water, and what you see here is a view through that stack as a probability. So the blue areas are places that were 100% water, the gray areas are places that are 0% water, and the reds are somewhere in between. This data set was run for all 32 years when we ran the initial thing. So there's a very large stack of monthly images that you can use to provide statistics and information for people that need to know about surface water. This got turned into one of the indicators for the SDGs. This is, in fact, the official SDG 661 indicator. Here is the website that we use to deliver that to countries and anybody else that cares. And since we delivered this originally in 2021 is the first year people were reporting with it, it's been expanded to handle wetlands and various other data sets. I'm going to talk now about a different project with a very similar engineering design, and I'll talk about them both here in a second. But this is the case of malaria risk mapping. In 2019, there were more than 200 million cases of malaria around the world, about 500,000 deaths, and 67% of those fatalities were children under the age of 5. Lots of this is preventable. Through a machine learning algorithm, you can take a bunch of covariate data, some actual occurrence data of malaria cases, put them together, and build a model for when you're going to get malaria. So here's an example of some occurrence data in Swaziland, some covariates like elevation, water index, temperature, wind, distance to humans, precipitation, a few others, put them all into a big random forest model, and you can do a prediction of where mosquitoes are likely to breed with about a 6-week advance notice. So we're not actually predicting mosquitoes, we're predicting the environmental conditions in which mosquitoes can breed. And we're not actually even predicting, we're saying the environmental covariates up to right now are conducive for mosquito breeding, and then that gives us about a 6-week window for outbreak of malaria. This got turned into an app and then a phone app for people on the ground to be able to do malaria interventions, either through insecticide spraying or mosquito netting. And the app actually allows the practitioners in the field to feed back new malaria case data to go into the next round of predictions. The thing that both of those two examples share is that they are basically just a random forest model on top of a covariate stack. The covariate stacks are quite similar in both of these cases. And if that's the kind of analysis you want to do, Earth Engine is probably a great tool for you. But there's a lot of other kinds of analysis that you might want to do. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about a different kind of analysis. This is for flood detection. Again, a very large societal impact. 250 million people affected annually, somewhere around $10 billion in damage, quite a number of deaths. Again, much of this is preventable if you just have early warning. If you're doing flood forecasting, this works out to be about 3 pieces. There's a hydrologic model, which tells you how much rain you're going to, or how much water you're going to have, an inundation model, which tells you where the water is going to go, and then if you're good at that, you can actually send out alerts to people telling them that they're in danger and they need to move. One of the things that makes our flood model stuff work well is that we have a super high resolution DEM that we generate from a wide variety of sources. So what you see here on the left is a standard DEM and an inundation model showing where the water is going in that standard DEM. But you can kind of see it just goes everywhere. So if you're trying to alert individuals, you might be sending a lot of false alerts with this kind of DEM. What we did is we built an AI that would be able to take a wide variety of data sources, primarily different kinds of satellite information, combine them all together and make a global 1-meter DEM, which we use for inundation mapping. One of the problems with DEMs also is that they change. Here are 2 examples of rivers jumping around a lot. The example on the right is in an area where every piece of this landscape has a name that means essentially rivers moving. These are oxbow lakes, there's evulsions, there's all kinds of things describing that landscape, meaning intellectually, hey, this river moves around a lot. But we never expected to see it move this much. This river jumps as much as 1 kilometer in a year. And so if you're trying to do high resolution mapping, you need to be able to repeat the process of building a DEM very rapidly. If you're a practitioner in the field, you know there's basically been 2 global DEMs ever made from satellite data, and everything else comes from other places. That was unacceptable for us, so we built an AI that would update this model on a daily basis from new satellite imagery. The second problem is that when you have a much higher resolution DEM, in this case our DEM is 90 times better than the global available one, you create your other problems for yourself. The computational costs go up by a square, and so we're about 3,000 times more computation necessary to run the hydrologic model and the inundation model in the same area. So that means that we needed to be able to run it in a different way. When you're running a hydrologic model, it's basically just partial differential equations. And so we trained an LSTM to implement those partial differential equations. The cool thing about it is not only that it will run very fast in those, with those very high resolution results, but in fact it's significantly better than most of the existing hydrologic models. All that data was put together into a website where people can go and interact with the flood data. It's called Flood Hub. It's open to anyone. It will show you where flooding is occurring basically in the past 15 minutes and anywhere in the 2 weeks before that. You can zoom in somewhere and see individual places where there are flood alerts. And here's a spot in Africa where not only was there a flood alert when I put this slide together, but it actually shows you what it thinks is going to happen to it shows you the boundary of where it thinks the flood's going to occur. All of this gets pushed down into Google Public Alerts, where we deliver flood warnings to people on the ground. You can target with pretty high precision someone's location for a mobile network, So with the high-resolution DEM, the very fast hydrologic models, and the ability to push notices to phones, we've been able to send alerts to more than 2 billion people telling them, hey, you're in trouble, you need to move right now, and hopefully saving lives in the process. That's my talk, and we'll do questions afterwards, I guess. So.